Every 12 years, on the banks of the sacred Godavari River, an entire city of faith just appears. It's a tradition that feels like it's straight out of mythology, a gathering that defines belief for hundreds of millions of people. Today, we're diving deep into this spectacular event, the Nashik Kumbh Mela.
But what happens when a belief this ancient slams into the pressures of the 21st century? Well, the Kumbh Mela is a total paradox. On one hand, it's the world's largest spiritual gathering, but on the other, it's an absolutely monumental logistical nightmare. And that's exactly the tension we're going to unpack right now.
All right, so to really get a grip on everything we're about to talk about, we have to start right here, with the river, and with faith. What is it exactly that draws these incredible crowds? At its heart, the core belief is just so powerful. Every 12 years, when the planets align in a very specific way, millions of pilgrims, or devotees, gather for a holy dip in the sacred Godavari. They believe this single act can cleanse them of their sins and even free them from the endless cycle of rebirth. Now, what makes the Nashik Kumbh so unique is that it's not just in one spot. It's actually split between two holy centers. You have Nashik, where the bathing happens at the Ramkund, and then, about 30 kilometers away, you have Trimbakeshwar, which is home to one of India's most sacred Shiva shrines, and the Kushavartakund, the place considered the actual source of the Godavari. It's a dual pilgrimage, which makes things even more complex. So, how in the world do you prepare for a literal tide of humanity this big? I mean, you don't just host millions of people. You have to build an entire temporary city. And believe me, the preparations for the next Mela in 2027 are already in full swing. The scale of the investment is just staggering. Look at this number, 556 crore rupees. To put that in perspective for you, that's over 65 million US dollars. And that's just for one project, expanding Nashik's Othar airport before the Mela begins. And this chart right here, this shows you exactly why they're spending that much money. Right now, the airport handles about 300 passengers an hour. The target for 2027 is to more than triple that, to 1,000. So we're not just talking about an upgrade here. This is a complete transformation to handle the crowds. And it's not just about space, it's about time, too. The next Mahamela is officially scheduled to run for an incredible 21 months. Now, this is a really strategic move for crowd control. See, unlike other places like Prayagraj, which have these huge wide-open riverbanks, the bathing spots in Nashik are much smaller, much more confined. So by spreading the event over almost 2 years, they're hoping to manage the crowd in waves. But of course, a gathering this immense has a cost. And that cost is often paid by the very river that sits at the center of all this devotion. So what is the environmental price of this mass pilgrimage? It forces us to ask a really tough question. What is the hidden cost of a holy dip? And to answer that, we have to look at the hard science, at the data from the last Kumbh Mela back in 2015. So here's what scientists did. They collected water samples before, during, and after the main bathing days. And these charts, they tell a pretty clear story. They show a really clear and immediate change in the river's chemistry, specifically its pH levels. And any shift in pH is a huge red flag for pollution, and it can be really harmful to aquatic life. This is what happens when millions of people all enter the water at once. But honestly, the biological impact, that's where things get really shocking. The permissible or safe limit for bacterial contamination is 50 units. During the 2015 Mela, the levels found in the river skyrocketed to 1,600. That is 32 times the safe limit. Just incredible. The scientific conclusion from all this was, well, pretty blunt. The study found that mass bathing has, and I'm quoting here, a disturbing effect on the Godavari River. A sacred act is having a profoundly unsacred impact. So you've got all these massive external pressures, right? But that's not the whole story. For years, there's been this quiet but really intense battle being fought on the inside, a battle for control over one of the holiest sites, the Trimbakeshwar temple. All right, so the big question was this: who gets a seat on the temple's official managing board, the trust? And this legal fight involved several key groups. You had the Tungars, who traditionally collect the cash offerings, the Purohits, the priests who serve the pilgrims, and the Pujaris, the families who perform the temple's most sacred worship. All of them wanted a say in how this incredibly important temple was run. The whole legal fight really boiled down to this one conflict. On one side, the existing trust argued that because these groups have a direct financial or pecuniary interest in the temple, it creates a conflict of interest. They said it should disqualify them from managing it. But on the other side, these groups argued for their fundamental right to representation, saying, hey, we're the ones most deeply involved in this temple's daily life. Then in 2002, the Bombay High Court came back with a huge, landmark ruling. The court basically said, you cannot disqualify an entire group of people just because of who they are. Disqualification has to be about the actions of an individual, not their family or their community. This decision completely reshaped who gets a seat at the table. And you know, wherever you have this much money, this many people, and this much history all in one place, you are absolutely going to have politics. And the lead up to the 2027 Mela has certainly had its share of controversy and some pretty serious allegations. For instance, take this from November 2025. A statement that was attributed to Maharashtra Minister Nitish Rane caused a major firestorm. He reportedly said that only shops owned by Hindus should be allowed at the Kumbh Mela.
At the very same time, all that massive infrastructure spending we talked about, well, that's drawing a lot of scrutiny. A report from the India Herald pointed to what it called a pattern of failures across the country, where brand new highways and bridges are failing soon after they're built. And this has raised some really serious questions about oversight and potential corruption.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. As we look toward 2027, what we're really seeing isn't just a religious festival. It's a point of convergence. It's a place where all of these immense forces, faith, infrastructure, the environment, law, and politics, are all on a collision course. And that brings us to our final big picture definition. The 2027 Nashik Kumbh Mela is so much more than a festival. It's become a modern crucible for some of India's biggest challenges. How do you manage immense crowds? How do you protect a sacred environment? How do you navigate complex legal rights? And how do you oversee massive public spending and make sure it's done right? And so I want to leave you with this one final, really important question. This collision of forces is putting an ancient tradition under incredible strain. Can this timeless expression of faith actually survive these modern pressures intact? Or will it, and the sacred river at its heart, be changed forever?